somebody just made a mistake, somebody was making a joke, but then it seemed to catch on where everybody thought, oh, this is the way to say this.
Yeah.
And it's
like wildfire. Everybody's using it, and
Yeah.
it's not correct.
Yeah.
So
it is weird.
It is weird.
It's like or like other things like in Detroit. Oh, I'm going down to Hart Plaza, H-E-A-R-T.
Oh yeah, we got that in the paper. Or writing about President Barack Obama, O-B-A-M-M-A.
He's not Irish.
No.
Well, not that we know of, but
Right.
the name is not Irish.
Yeah. Now, and that brings up the point, if you're including a reference, whether it be a cultural reference or a political reference, just Google it, make sure you're spelling it right, or else look it up in a dictionary, biographical dictionary. That's the end of your Webster's. They have that biographical dictionary part.
If you're on the
look it up.
computer and you're online anyways, if it just doesn't look right or feel right, copy it, paste it in. Oh, I should have had an I instead of an A there.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Easy fix.
Yeah, definitely.
So use your
I have you
instinct a
do
little
that
bit.
a lot, don't I?
Yeah, I know.
Papers, yeah.
And sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, now another thing that a lot of writers do, they'll write a great paper, but they won't separate their sections. You want your section headings: introduction, development, summary, conclusion. Don't just write a paper straight without the separating out the sections, because we don't know where one is ending and the next is beginning.
Yeah.
Is this still the introduction? Is this still the development? I don't know. So it really helps.
I mean, like longer work, like if you're doing like a long senior paper or master's thesis or a dissertation, you can't do that. I mean, that becomes just total confusion.
Definitely.
So this is more, part of it is a practicum for doing larger things.
Exactly.
The skills set that we work with here can be expanded into larger things.
A lot of writers will misuse its, I-T-S, and its, I-T apostrophe S.
We all do, I suppose.
Yeah, and there's an easy fix for that. IT apostrophe S is the contraction for it is. Like
all contractions.
Yeah, like it is not snowing right now. But
It's not snowing.
Yeah, it's not snowing right now. Where ITS is a possessive, like it's good writing impressed me, like referring to a term paper. It's good writing referring to that term paper.
But it's not possessive, because most of our possessive, like Gary's apostrophe S is possessive,
right.
But because we're already using IT apostrophe S for a contraction, we've adopted this ITS for the possessive in English. It's one of those things of this language, which is the Norse and the Saxons, and then the Normans came over, and various other Germanic influences and other things. And that was just in England. It got bad enough until Samuel Johnson had to sit down and write the book to clean up the English language of how to write proper English. And then you take it all over the world, and it's like, I forget, how many words are there in the English language?
I really don't know.
Like in German, there's not that many.
I know English has the most of any
like
language.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
because it's been sort of that's a good word. Let's bring it into the language.
Yeah. And then you get slang on top of that. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot. But I mean, a lot of this might seem like, okay, this is kind of picky, but it really makes a difference when you're writing a professional paper that you got these things correct. Because somebody reading them who knows English will be like, well, wait a minute, the content's good, but the person doesn't know the difference between its and its.
Do I want to sit here for an hour going through and line editing it before I publish their work?
Yeah.
Or would I rather take this other one that is maybe not quite as good, but I don't have to spend more than 5 or 10 minutes of fixing, and I can go out
Or I don't have to fix it at all.
see a movie tonight
Yeah.
or something.
Or
you
I
know.
don't have to fix it at all,
Or
which makes a difference.
I have a staff of like one person because the Journal of Macroeconomics used to be published in our department when the professor that was doing that was alive in here. Sherry Miller was his assistant. Talk to Sherry sometime. Wealth of information. And basically, I think it was just Sherry. I think Heidi was around. She's not here anymore. And that was it. And they turned out the quarterly publication, Journal of Macroeconomics. You know, one professor, Sherry part of the time, Heidi more of the time, some of the times, you know. So you have to decide, you got this many hours to the week, this many hours to the month, to the quarter, and you got to get the thing to press. How much time can you spend on any submission? Okay. We've been doing the legal news column for now it's 15 years. And once we got the hang of what they wanted, they don't bother.
They don't fix anything.
No, they just publish it.
Yeah.
Because we're doing as well as they're going to do. And it's like, hey, you know, we don't. And it's become more and more critical because the budgets of publishers and newspapers and journals and whatever have gotten slashed.
Oh, yeah.
When you were at Gale originally, you had, it was you and how many,
Oh, I had
what were your minions were, how many?
10 people, then cut down to 7, cut down to 5, cut down to 2 by the time I left. So
And that was
and then we had to put out.
encouraged you to leave.
Yeah, and the number of books we had to publish increased while the number of staff members decreased. So that's, you know.
So this is what we face in terms of getting things out there is the people who are the gatekeepers don't have the staff, they don't have the time to say, oh, I have a great idea here, here's my paper, you know. They don't have the time to be your editor.
No.
To do the rewrites.
No. Okay, another important thing, and I use this word important for a reason that you'll see in a second. If you repeat words in close space, it really stands out as being a negative.
It reeks.
Because you don't want to use the same descriptive word in a paragraph.
It reeks.
Yeah, it reeks.
See?
For example, and here's the example. An important field because it uses issues important to blah, blah, blah. See what that person did? He or she used important and important within the same sentence.
What's a good rule of thumb?
That do not use the same word for at least 5 or 6 lines.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good. 5 or 6 lines and Times New Roman 12 points.
Yeah.
You know.
Use your thesaurus, the thesaurus feature on your Word
Yeah.
document,
Now,
your
this
program.
doesn't include words like the
Yeah.
or and.
No.
But I mean, like,
Adjectives and
adjectives,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
certain nouns.
Nouns, yeah.
You want, it's called eloquent variation.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
Donald McCoskey, Writing Economics, famous book. See, we used to have this around the department, and everybody was like, yeah, I read this book kind of things. Help me with this. How do you spell McCoskey?
Yeah, it's M small c
M-C,
M large C
large C,
LOSKEY.
Y. Okay. Now, the first edition is under the name of Donald. Okay? And the second edition is under the name of Deidre. It's the same person with one minor difference.
Yeah.
Jeremy Bentham's not the only economist. But it's economic writing or writing of economics, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a couple, two different names for the same book. Actually, I like the first edition the best of the two, but both of them are very helpful to have around. He talks about eloquent variation of, you don't, because we're dealing with technical language in economics, if you use one word in place of another word, it can mean something very different. You know? Like, or whatever. But eloquent variations, finding, words that mean the same and alternating them. And some of the technical words, you gotta use the same one every time. And that's the exception to the rule that, you gotta use it like every 2 or 3 lines because that's the unique word, so be it.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But if it's anything where you can find a synonym for that's close, work with that, and it gives it more life, more buoyancy. It makes it easier to read, and it's more engaging to the readers.
And it makes you seem like a better writer because you got that variation there. It's like the person reading your document isn't probably thinking this person is creative enough to find different words, but it's there in the back of the person's mind as they're reading it. They appreciate it. Now, another thing that your papers need to be is long enough, because a lot of writers will have good content on what they've included, but their papers will be really short, and you don't want to do that. Just make sure they're long enough.
That's why this one is no less than 9.5, but no more than 10.5.
Yeah.
And I take off points as a percentage below or above.
A lot of people will change the
Easy
margins.
calculation.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people will change their margins. They'll make the margins. Yeah, and I mean, no.
I've been doing this long enough. I know font. Garriman is not Times New Roman, okay? And if you fiddle with the space. Now be careful of this. When you go in on the formatting, because sometimes a computer you might be using has set the spacing for double space to 2.1 or something like that. Just make sure that it's down to 0 and there's double space, okay?
Yeah.
1-inch margins.
1-inch margins around. It's not going to get published where I need an extra 1/2 inch for some binding spine or anything like that. Okay, 1 inch is fine. It gives you some room to work, in terms of you're going to use the 10 pages. What you're going to find when you get into it is like the task is not writing 10 pages; it's limiting it.
Yes.
Editing it down, getting rid of, superfluous words, because to get everything in there that you want, you're nodding your head, right?
Yeah, that's what happened to me from last, in class, last semester when I did my paper on the stadium, I ended up like 13 pages. I was like,
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know. I was
you
just
think,
typing, I was like, oh my goodness.
I have to struggle to get that
I had
back.
to struggle.
But see, that's where that inverted pyramid thing would help, because then you can fit stuff in, like, okay, this is most important, next important, and then the rest of it you don't need. So
Yeah, sometimes it's better. Just write, take the time, give yourself enough space. And if you get 17 pages, great. And then edit it down.
yeah,
That's what I ended up doing.
that's good.
And look, this is kind of redundant, I don't need that. Or it's like I'm using 10 words to say something I can say in 5 words. But gee, a 10-word sentence looks fancier than a 5-word sentence. So what?
Yeah.
The point is to communicate clearly, succinctly, in a way that's engaging, that encourages somebody to read.
Exactly. a lot of writers will include charts and graphs in the body of the paper.
On the back.
You want to do that.
Anything
You want to put it in the back.
Put it on the back. I'll take a look at, but nothing in the text.
Yeah.
It's very
Just the text. Okay, now, a lot of writers will not even include a cover sheet, and if they do include a cover sheet, it won't have all the information on it. So you want to do that just as a basic. Put your name, put the class name, and the date that you're submitting it, and the title of your term paper.
Give it a name.
Yeah.
Call it Fred, George, I don't care, but if the more descriptive you are, the better, because
Right.
5 words should tell you what the thing's about.
Yeah.
3 words should, if you can.
Please make sure that your sentences make sense. A lot of writers will write sentences that you read and you go, huh? Like, let me give you an example. One person wrote, banks began to lend money of housing through credit. What does that mean? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
You know?
so I think maybe the person might have meant banks began to lend money off housing. Off of housing? I don't know, but that was just my guess. But I mean,
for housing.
Yeah, for housing.
For housing purchase or
Yeah.
housing development. You need something.
Yeah, to spell out
yeah.
what it is. So.
It's like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, so don't be that person.
And you may know.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand this perfectly.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, again, the grandma test.
Yep.
Read it to your grandmother, and assuming she doesn't have a PhD in economics, can she understand what you're talking about?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Or simply reading it aloud.
Yes.
Sometimes you hear it aloud to yourself, and you go, God, this is terrible.
Well, that's what John and I do, and when we write our column for the legal news, John will write several drafts, then I'll come in and edit it.
I try to do 3 or 4 drafts before he shows up, because I like writing my money's worth. Okay, 3 or 4 drafts, depending on how much time I have. If I only do 2, it's usually on rare occasions will it really hold together. Okay, and though a lot of people just sit the night before papers do, and okay, I write a paper, I'm gonna write the whole paper, and I got that many pages, good, it's done, and that's it. Okay, no. Write through once, just write. Okay. Like this. Sometimes I get tired of the keyboard, and just for freshness of thought, I'll just get a spiral binder and a pen and just go and write longhand and then that's my first draft, and the second draft is typing it into the computer, at which point I'm changing a lot of stuff and fixing things that don't sound right, or missing words or misspelled words or whatever on that. And then let's set at least as long as it takes you to go out to have a nice leisurely lunch or dinner, go to a movie, something, go jogging for 5 miles, and then come back to it with a fresh set of eyes, with a fresh mind, and then, or better, if you can, give yourself the time where set it, leave it to the next day, and come back to it. And it's like, then you got some distance there. Do a 3rd draft. And then, if you can do a 4th draft, if it needs it, go through it and say, change this. Because you want to show it to somebody that's better at writing than you are. Okay? And you don't want to be embarrassed. Self-embarrassment, It's like dogs. I like dogs, Dogs get embarrassed by things. Cats don't, They just look at you like, worship me. What happened? 2,000 years ago, you worship me. Why aren't you worshiping me? But dogs, and it's like, I piddle on the floor, it's so good. Okay, so be like a dog. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You're going to show it to somebody that hopefully knows more about the the craft, the art of writing than you do, or at least a fresh set of eyes,
Right.
if nothing more, that they're going to read it as somebody that doesn't know what's going on in your brain. Okay.
You know, what we do is we finally sit together
Yeah.
and read, one of us will read the paper out loud.
Well,
and
that's after, let's say, after 3, and you come in, and then you hack the thing to death. I'll give him, here's a secret, I do not give him a red pen. I've been giving him blue pens for years. It's less distressful. Okay. To see the blue ink all over your paper than red ink. Okay? So he tears it apart, okay? And then we sit down together and key it in. Seems to work best.
Yeah.
And usually he'll say, okay, second paragraph, second line from the bottom, and blah, 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 that needs changing. Okay, find that. We just kind of walk through, and it's like typesetting almost, right? And then we'll find other things as we're going. Wait, that doesn't sound right. And you go, oh, okay. Or, what did you mean to say there? So that kind of takes place by himself. He goes through it, and number 5, we're sitting together, keying it in, the changes in the computer, and at the same time finding other things that can be improved upon. Right? And then when we're done with that, we sit down and or we take turns, we read the whole thing aloud.
And we are really surprised by what jumps out.
We just
Because
jump,
it's, I mean, it's like, oh, wait, I missed that. Let's fix that. Or let's add something to this. Or
this a little too long. We don't need that extra.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like just extra baggage. Just toss it out. And then if you've ever worked with wood sanding, okay, you don't take a piece of sandpaper and sand it and go, okay, I'm done. Now I can paint it. No. You start with a rough grade, like 100 grit or less, and you work your way up, and depending on how fine you want it to be. Like if I'm working on a guitar or something, I'll go all the way up to like around 2400, where it's more polishing than anything to get it up to that point before I put any filler in and put any lacquer on it or something, right? It's the same idea. You get a better product if you do it in gradual. It's like a car, right? If you're buffing a car or painting a car or something like that, or fixing anything, it always comes out better if you do it multiple times, a series, right? So.
That's true. Okay, a few other things I wanted to share with you. It would be helpful if you could spell out numbers from 1 through 10. That's the professional way to do it. Then from 10 up, you can just use the numeral.
Yeah.
Both.
Sometimes it's been changing.
It has, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, but 1 to 10 for sure. Spell them out.
yeah.
Okay.
Any book, magazine, or website that you have in the body of your term paper, make sure it's represented in your bibliography, your works cited. A lot of people miss out on that. A lot of people say a couple when they should be saying a couple of, like a couple things to address rather than a couple of things to address. Remember, you want to come off as sophisticated. You know, this is just not. We're not just talking here. This is professional writing.
Yeah, that's a little
Yeah.
nitpicky, but
Yeah, but
that's what it's about.
It is. All right, when you have an era, like the Bronze Age, or a historical event like World War II, the Great Depression, you want to capitalize those. A lot of people don't, but those are definite historical terms that you want to
Great
capitalize.
Depression, that's a good example, because if you're not capitalizing it, was it so great?
Yeah, that's true.
As a reminder.
I talked about people saying a couple rather than a couple of.
Yeah.
Even more so, you want to keep your language formal throughout throughout your term paper.
Yeah.
And because, here's a couple of examples. One person wrote in their paper when they were in their summary conclusion, I worked my ass off.
Which is, yeah, they probably
They
did.
probably did,
And
but-
it was very endearing.
But not in a professional paper.
No.
And another guy wrote, da 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 is bullshit. And I'm like, wow, this is not probably what your boss would want to see in you when he or she reads your paper if you use it for a professional document. So just avoid that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a few economists that can get away with that. But
not for our purposes here.
But just because you
Yeah.
can doesn't mean you should.
Right, exactly.
So,
Now, when you're writing, you want to avoid really, really long sentences. If they go for more than a couple of lines, break them up into 2 sentences,
Yeah.
maybe even 3. And another thing that you can do to really help the flow is if you've got a couple of declarative sentences like, I am teaching this class, period. I'm enjoying teaching this class, period. Those are declarative. Then put in a sentence that starts with an introductory phrase like, tomorrow, comma, I'll be working at home. Or on Friday, I'll be going to the movies.
or simply, however,
However,
or furthermore,
furthermore,
it
right.
breaks it up so it's not just dun, dun, dun. It's like a beat.
It's
right?
like music, yeah.
If a beat like that without,
Right.
see?
Yep.
Makes it more interesting, right?
Yep.
Okay. That's what the introductory phrases do.
Yeah.
They're basically just like music. Right?
Very much so. Very much so. And that keeps the reader more interested. They won't get tired of reading your work. They'll want to continue because they're enjoying the flow. It's easy to read. It's interesting. It's fun.
People like to read for pleasure.
Yeah.
Now, if you can give them serious content that's pleasurable to read, like something they would read for pleasure, all the better, right?
Yeah.
Then it's not a chore. It becomes a job that they love because it's enjoyable reading.
Yeah, and that's bottom line for your papers is you want them to be enjoyable to the reader. You want them to inform the reader, but you also want the reader to enjoy the experience.
There's so much stuff to read now because it's gotten so easy to write lots of stuff. Copy paste from the internet, and even just if you don't bother paraphrasing, they just stick a bunch of stuff together. Yeah. So 10 pages it's been a standard in some industries for a long time, probably because there's lots of writing in those industries. The film industry.
Definitely.
A buddy of mine, old college housemate, Bill Mechanic, he was head of 20th Century Fox for a number of years during the Titanic and Braveheart era. His job as head of the studio was basically to read treatments, which basically are like these 10-page double-spaced things, right? And he would read them. He was a lit major in college. It made it a little bit easier for him. But to read them and then decide, green light, we'll give him the budget for that, or red light, ain't going to get made at this studio. Yep. Well, I think the same is true with lots of different industries, not just the film industry. Say the automotive industry. You have a proposal for a particular project or something, somebody reads it, and what the fuck? What the heck is he talking about?
Yeah.
Over there. Or send it back, You get something that's engaging, oh, yeah, hey, this is a great idea. Yeah, I'm going to schedule an appointment so I can talk to this person. Yeah. So That's what it's about.
I wanted to give you something new that we haven't included before in our seminars. It occurred to me that you're going to be doing your PowerPoint presentation. You're going to be out in the workforce soon, if you're not already, doing presentations. You want to speak correctly when you're reading and when you're talking extemporaneously. What I have noticed in the last several years is that there's been a huge misuse of the article a or and the word the or the.
Are you talking about like Canadian?
No, I'm talking about not Canadian A, but the letter A, the article A.
A?
A.
A?
A.
Okay.
Politicians, entertainers, announcers in the last couple of years have been misusing these words, and they become part of the fabric of the language.
Yeah.
But
Just because you're rich and famous and have big hair,
yeah, yeah, you will come across more professional if you show that you know the English language when you're speaking. And here is how you differentiate. Instead of saying, I'll have a coffee to go, you say, I'll have a coffee to go. The reason is because the word comes before coffee, which starts with a C. C is a consonant. Any word that starts with a consonant, so B, C, D, F, G, H, etc., you say not A. You say A when there's a vowel, A, E, I, O, or U, of the word that starts next. So that's
or and. Or
yeah.
and.
Yep.
But now it's changed a bit, at least in spoken language, where apple. I still prefer an apple.
Yeah, an apple.
Okay. But but with the change in the language, and A.
Yep. Like, for example, the A that I got on my term paper really brought up my average. So that's A, B, A. So it's V, but not the A. You wouldn't say that. So you want to say with consonants and the with consonants. So by doing this, you're going to sound like you have knowledge of the language, which is what you want to project.
And it's the English. Is it just American English?
I've noticed that the English are starting to follow the Americans now.
Oh, they really?
Like John Oliver. Has anybody watched the John Oliver show on HBO? Yeah. He says he's starting to do it now. And I'm going, wait a minute. You guys are the ones, the English are the ones that created the rules, and now you're emulating the wrong American usage. So, yeah. So, like for example, I am enjoying the class today. I'm not enjoying the class. I'm enjoying the class.
Would they use it upstairs at Downton Abbey or downstairs at Downton Abbey?
I think Downton Abbey's using it right. They're using it correctly.
They are.
Yeah.
But if you listen, there's downstairs English and there's upstairs
Yeah.
English, right? And academic, for the most part, is upstairs English.
That's right. So you want to be upstairs. Like, for example, a good term paper is a pleasure to read. A good term paper. Good starts with a G. It's a consonant. Not a vowel. So you're going to use and the more often than a or the, just because there's more consonants than vowels. So that's a good rule of thumb. Mm-hmm. So that will help you when you're speaking, doing your presentations or whatever you do professionally.
Yeah, and practice your presentation. Now, talk about the presentation maybe just briefly.
Okay.
I'm not asking you to have the final version of the paper in when you do the presentation, okay? Which can create a great pitfall for many of having not much together on paper at all and doing a presentation. But the idea there is to have it together, do the presentation, get feedback from me, get feedback from your peers, and then, you know, if it's something that just didn't seem to work, you can go back and fix it before you hand in your final copy. Right? That way you don't get penalized. Oh, you turned your paper in and then you did terrible, you know, presentations. There's no, you can't have it back to change anything. No, that's BS. Okay, so it's, you know, the final draft is not due until after the presentation. Okay, but if you build the presentation off of the paper, okay, or build it, what word am I looking for? Simultaneously, right? Develop
Yeah.
it simultaneously, parallel with the paper. That's going to help you get it organized. It should be sort of an abstraction of the paper. Yeah, 6 minutes and 20 seconds. 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, if you were to talk like a newscaster going straight through, and this was Walter Cronkite. Anybody remember Walter Cronkite? Okay. He was head of CBS News for like 20 years.
Yeah.
When he got into newscasting, he sat and he practiced over and over again. This is his thing. Of talking at 125 words per minute, because he found that was the best tempo. And if you talk faster than that, it's difficult for people. If we talk slow, they start going to sleep on you. Unless you're on like late night FM radio, then you can talk slow. The blues.
Pillow talk.
Pillow talk with
Alan Alden.
Yeah. So yeah, okay, and have the pacing down. So 125 words times 6 equals 750, and then there's like 20 seconds in there, right? So, you know, what you're looking at is like around 800 words, speaking words, for 6 minutes and 20 seconds, if that. So I can get down to that. That's, you know. Now, another reason I like the 12-point Times New Roman double spaced 1-inch margins is because you end up getting approximately 250 words a page. That means the whole 10 pages is 2,500 words. So what you're doing is, for the presentation, getting it down to about 1/4 its size, 1/5 its size, something like that. So work with that. And have something, but then you want to condense. You're going to do the Reader's Digest version of your paper for the presentation. Okay, it's not going to be a real tiny thing, but it's not going to be the same as, or almost the same as, the paper. Not just trying to read the paper. It's just, so you want the presentation to be independent, but based upon all this other work you've done. And most of the time in public situations where you have to present something, either academically or in a professional work environment, like in a conference room or something like that, or at trial, having it down, right? The takeaway is the paper. Your presentation is this, right? And I think I've mentioned, you know, like sort of the standard. Now, you've interviewed lots of people that you had to hire or not hire, right?
Right.
And you don't have enough hours in the day to spend as much time as you would want to on the first interview.
Oh, no, definitely
So,
not.
what, 15 minutes?
15, 20 minutes, yeah, about that.
So if you got 15 or 20 minutes and you're just presenting for all that time, and they say, well, it's time to go, there's no time for them to ask you questions, there's no time for you to ask them questions, there's no time to establish some kind of bond, their relationship. If you do 6.5 minute presentation, and ask if they have questions. Oftentimes there'll be multiple people there, right?
Right.
And then you can ask them questions, and then you can just talk, get to know them, right?
Yeah.
That's going to. It tells them, A, if we hire this person, they're going to come in and not waste our time at meetings, because they're going to have it together. They're going to come in, say what they mean, make it clear, present it well, and we can go out for lunch.
And it also means that there's communication between you and them. It's mutual.
Yeah.
And that counts for a lot. Because you're not just a talking head, you're having a dialogue with your potential employer, which is really
so
good,
we
because
may not
who doesn't like to
understand.
be who doesn't like to be communicated with?
Yeah. So I mean, it's in a sense the paper and the presentation is not the thing that you just lay out there and that gets you a job. No, it's basically something that helps you to open the door and establish a relationship beyond that.
We covered a lot of information in this seminar.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know what questions you have about anything that John and I have talked about. What doesn't make sense? What needs more clarification? What do you think?
When picking your topic, how can you narrow something down to something that's not, as Professor Sayce said, the economic view of there's so many different aspects of something. How can you narrow something down just to really focus on something? What's the best way to?
What do you find most interesting about the topic? What really jumps out at you out of the larger topic? What is the thing that really grabs you that you think, the aha moment when you see that thing, it's like, wow, that's really interesting, or I think I could really write about that.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is where you nail it. What would you add to that?
Yeah. What's the aha moment?
Yeah.
And find the aha moment, then you can kind of like expand back outward as far as you need to for it to make sense. Now you're talking about the financial collapse in the 1920s, okay? Now, to fully understand it, you really should go back to like 1800 and then see that. But, okay, I mean, it's, volume this thick, okay? What about it? I mean, ask yourself, what is there specifically? And it could be some little small thing, what seems like a small thing that kind of captivates you. I always come back to this example. You have people pushing wheelbarrows full of paper money to buy a loaf of bread. I mean, that's like, actually that picture, the photograph is a great focal point of something which is much larger, but here, this is how it's hitting an individual, normal citizen on the street somewhere in Berlin, and during all this, and they're just trying to survive. Maybe that's it, bring it down to, again, going back to like the big Short. What I liked about it is like it kind of brought things down to the characters level, brought it down to very human levels.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why I think it's like Steve Carell's best movie so far, just because he nailed it. He understood and he just really captured something in there, on a very personal level.
Yeah.
So trying to make it as big and no, don't want to do that. I mean, you find the detail to focus on.
Yeah. Well, you know what the summary conclusion is supposed to do. You're supposed to, in that, talk about what you have discovered and what you project. So maybe that will help you when you're choosing a topic to think, okay, I can really talk about this. I can really see some things in this that I can expand upon and give my personal opinion on in my summary conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Is there a wow factor that you can leave the audience with at the end?
Yeah, wow factor is good. Yeah.
And then start there and work back.
Yeah.
How are you going to get to that point?
Yeah.
There's in script writing, there's something called character arc and story arc. And if I may erase this. For those who came in late, talk to Paige. She'll explain everything to you. Okay. Generally speaking, okay, a story, a play, a movie, right? Those have it's called an exposition. That's kind of the introduction, overview, kind of introducing all the characters and the themes, etc. And then it builds up to some first climactic moment, okay? And down from there, okay? And it'll build up to a little bit stronger second climactic moment. And then it actually gets down into this, oftentimes it'll be a crisis moment, and then build up to the big finale point, and then the denouement, which is your then conclusion, summary, afterthoughts, etc. Right? So this is one way to go about it, because here you have, there's the introduction, there's the conclusion, and then this gives you some structure in between to really kind of like, again, inverted pyramid, right? Narrow, 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 bang, here's the payoff. Right.
That's good. That's good. Other questions, other things that we can clarify, explain?
So our target audience, is it an informed target audience, or should we write to somebody who doesn't?
Well, you're going to be presenting it to members of this class. How many people here are econ majors?
Okay. So
Okay, there you got it right there.
Sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, here's a non-econ person right
Yeah.
here, you know, so
Everything he knows is picked up by osmosis.
yeah,
over the years.
I've learned a lot from reading papers and working on the legal news and so on, but I'm not an economist, so you think about that I and whomever else you give the paper to who's not an economist is going to be reading it, and so you got to have that balance of keeping it at the academic level, your peers, but can anybody read it and understand it? So that's the balance.
Again, you don't want to baby it down. You don't want to
No.
dumb it down. That's what I'm saying. If you look at the stuff on the Flesch Kincaid reading level, it may give you an idea that if you're aiming at college graduate, first year graduate student, seems to be a comfortable thing. That's what we try to do with the legal news, because some people who read it who are paralegals, so the ones who are well educated, have an undergraduate degree, and then 1 year of graduate work to become a paralegal. Some people have 3 years of law school. There's other people on staff that have a bit less than that, but they're used to working with people that are fairly well educated in their audience. So so it's kind of the median point is college graduate, first year graduate school kind of thing. Seems to work well. Now, if you were writing to a very elite select audience of, the uber achieving PhDs like Sheldon Cooper and Sheldon Cooper, right? Well, it's different, right? Other people would come in and go, "What the heck are they talking about?" I don't know. But no. Something that's going to be useful to you, because in a work situation you're going to have staff people who hopefully have a college, hopefully have a college education, but at least high school plus maybe an associate's degree level, and the ones that you're working with a lot. Maybe not. It could be people who just barely got out of high school, but there's the other extremes. They're trying to, find some comfort level. It's educated, but not to the point of a pin, but not, just trying to keep it the duck people on TV, Duck Nation.
Duck Dynasty.
Duck Dynasty,
Yeah.
something like that. This or the alligator swamp group.
Yeah.
Even them, they're, a little bit more sophistication because of their knowledge base. So you find a focal. Okay? Safe one is, those who are seniors are almost graduating, so you should be able to write then at a college graduate level. And also, that's right at the cusp of first year graduate. And those who are graduate students, maybe you have to dumb down just a tiny bit to hit the first year graduate level, right? But, and it's kind of it's not point, it's a range.
Other questions? Has anybody thought about what he or she is going to be writing their trim paper about?
Well, do we have to have a final decision for you so we can turn it in for you, Dr. Chess?
As soon as you can. I'm not doing it quite as rigid as I did with the other because
From last semester, you're not doing it like that. Last semester.
we had a lot of
Different, yeah.
It was a different mix.
It was like different mix.
Yeah.
This is all econ major, so.
yeah. So I mean it's a little bit and yeah. So as soon as you have a topic, give me a paragraph, half sheet. It can be handwritten for that matter. I just want to see something like within the next couple of weeks. Okay, I mean this is why he's here with me tonight, is to kind of like get this going, right? To get the fire started. So like, either next week or the following week. Give me a half page. Typed, handwritten, whatever. Just kind of, basically an abstract, okay? And then I can work with you and I can give you some feedback, I can make suggestions, I can give you some direction. If it's a topic I know something about, I can say, why don't you look at this book, and that book, and hopefully that will get things moving a little bit more.
How long did you say, how many pages should the intro be?
Limited to 1.5, typically 3/4 to a page and a half. I mean, if you can get the intro and nail it in like 3/4 of a page, great. It's very difficult to do less than that because you kind of, you lose people. But yeah, not beyond a page and a half. The same thing with the summary conclusion. 3/4 to a page and a half. You got a little bit of room to play with, depending on exactly what you're going to do. If you're going to get very prescriptive or something at the end, it becomes like a Truffaut movie where you just goes on for a long time at the end, or it can be pretty short and tight. What you have, say it's a page and a half intro, page and a half outro, then that leaves you with 7 pages for development. And that's kind of making that awfully tight in there. So how do you get more development? Well, you can trim down the intro and the conclusion to a page, and then now you have 8 pages to work.
If I may make a suggestion, I think it's better if you're going to trim something to trim the intro. You want the summary conclusion to really be full.
Mm-hmm.
Because my experience in looking at papers is, I'm going, wow, this paper's really good, really good, really good. Then I get to the summary conclusion and it goes, pfft.
Yeah,
Because the
becomes
person
an
hasn't-
afterthought.
Yeah, the person hasn't given as much space to it and therefore hasn't really developed the ideas, given all those things that I was talking about before, the current status, future, future, and opinions and all that good stuff. So I would say limit your introduction because as long as you say, basically, this is what the paper will include, they can get into the development and then get into the good summary conclusion and give it the full length of space that it needs. Those are the best papers in my opinion.
I'll rough out things for summary conclusions like every month. But for I don't know how many years now, I've been waiting to Gary comes in, and we go through the whole thing, and we're talking about it, and then that summary conclusion usually emerges, and sometimes he asks me questions.
Most often I do.
Yeah, and it's like, how can we tie it all together? Can I explain it in the summary where he understands all of what I'm talking about, and just kind of fill it in there, nice ending to it. Leave people not wanting.
Exactly. Yeah, and usually what I say to John is, okay, you covered this subject, it's really thorough, it's really good. Now, what do you want your audience to take away? What are you trying to say by covering this subject to attorneys and other professionals, which is our target audience? So then John just pulls it out of his brain, and then I'll work with him on that, and we always come up with something that's good.
If I can explain it very simply to Gary verbally, and Gary will jot down notes, or like in a way, and look and see if I get a glance of comprehension or whatever.
Or if I'm looking at you glassy eyed.
Yeah. Am I going into some? Well, if I can tie it down and it works and you understand, you go, oh, that's what it means. And,
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So that's a good way to do it. So if you have, this is another thing I want to encourage amongst you, is team up with at least one other person in the class, preferably two. That way you have like a trio, and it's not just that kind of one-on-one kind of thing, but you have three people working as a group, and you can even rotate around. You can move around and work with these three for a while, and then split. And that can help too. And just try these things. And as you're trying the ideas out, you'll see, oh yeah, that's cool. It was like, can you explain that again? I didn't quite understand it. And what's not to understand? It's as clear as mud. So, try that. Make this kind of a group thing. And I'm here, and I can, participate too, and I can give you feedback, and whatever we can do to make it a little bit more of a collective experience, rather than just, okay, I'm going to do a paper, I'm going to do this, and I come back and here's my presentation. No, if you come in for your presentation and a third of the class has already kind of heard your idea and explored it, and then you're, in a sense, you're talking to your friendly audience. That makes it a whole lot easier.
Definitely.
Right? Because what how they're gonna react. That's a good way to work.
There's a movie from the early 70s called The Paper Chase. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's about law school. It's about this, it's Harvard Law School, and this guy named Hart joins a study group because they have their, I don't know if it's his torts professor or what. He's like a bear. He's horrible. He's like the meanest guy. He's like he belittles everybody in class. So they bond together and they share their work with each other, and like most of them do really well in the class because of that. They kind of circumvent all the evil that the professor is foisting on them, and they show him, that through teamwork, they learn the material and they can express it, and that's kind of reminded me when you were saying for this class.
Yeah, but I'm not a mean person. I'm
not equating you with that.
Person.
I'm not equating you with him by any stretch. But,
I'm slightly eccentric, I suppose. In a mild sort of way. That's okay. I'm into obscure things, right?
Esoteric.
You guys have been with me for more than a term. You know the kind of things I get into academically and that, and that's odd. That's okay.
Don't take that personally, John.
No, I won't.
No.
So, I'm not a person you can get together and gang up on against. But so you got to find a different way of doing it. So,
Has anybody got a subject already for their paper?
I've got one, but I'm thinking of already changing.
Really?
I'm thinking of already changing it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I'll talk to you after.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna do it on the Bitcoins.
Okay.
Oh,
You really speaking like the Bitcoins, huh?
Yeah. Very solid on that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. What tack are you going to take?
I'm not 100% sure yet because I want to look at the legality of it, the black market side of it, potential for future use if there is. Yeah.
Good, good. Yeah. I like that.
Oh,
Maybe pick one focal. Maybe
Yes.
the black market, or maybe, I mean, mention the others, but yeah, get a.
well, I was still
one-
researching to see how easy it would be to find
Yeah,
information that's.
yeah.
I like
It's
potential for
trustworthy.
future use, though. That's
Mhm.
that fits right in, like with your summary conclusion. You know, we can talk about that.
As you're Googling, one thing I learned from Google is that the things that get ranked the highest are getting more and more YouTube videos showing up in the high rankings. Now, part of that is because Google now owns YouTube, and so they have a vested interest. But sometimes if you Google on YouTube, you're going to find the cute cats and all this kind of stuff. But you're also going to find some very serious things that some very educated people have put up there, which are sometimes a teaser or a short thing to take you to their website or promote their book or whatever it is, So I'm thinking, because Bitcoins is so new,
Yeah.
that there may be more through that channel than just the regular print media.
It's possible.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, also just the idea is how do you measure illicit activity? How do you record that, and how do you report on it accurately without being part of that illicit activity? So
It's going to be observational. You could do a survey if you could find. I'm not quite sure. If you find people who are into Bitcoins and do a survey kind of thing on them.
Could maybe look around and see what kind of vendors offer
Yeah.
as a form of payment.
Uh-huh.
It seemed interesting.
Oh yeah, it is.
Oh, it's very
Definitely.
interesting. Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, it's so new that, I mean, it's been around for a few years, but
Yeah.
it just isn't, it's developing so quickly.
Because it's hard to tell people or to convince people to move away from a tried and true type of currency or,
Yeah, well, yeah.
or currency
Mhm.
that might have a precious value like gold or something like that.
Mhm.
And then you got people just afraid of the internet sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
How can
Oh,
we
yeah.
trust? What's
It's
going
like,
to happen?
where's my money? It's just, I mean, it's hard enough to get people to stop using checks at the grocery store.
And use online banking.
Yeah.
What time do you want it?
Oh, it's just time to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, and I wish you well with your papers. I look forward to reading them.